So hello once again my dear students. So as per my last video that I had uploaded, I was discussing regarding the introduction of the chapter 3, that is atoms and molecules, and we saw the introduction of this chapter whereby we found that the idea of divisibility of matter was wondered long ago by Indian as well as Greek philosophers, and practically until the end of 18th century there were no practical evidence to what were being told. All were practically hypothetical assumptions. So by the end of 18th century, some scientific works began, and for the first time, the scientific way of explaining the atoms came into limelight. And as such, you can see it is mentioned here, pioneers in establishing the scientific views regarding the atomic concept. So when we use the word scientific views, that means we need to understand that we are talking something relevant with some evidence. All right, that means something is being explained with proof. So what is mentioned here is as pioneer. What we understand by pioneer? This is the beginner, the first we can say, right? So for the pioneer to be called regarding establishing the scientific views, Antoine L. Lavoisier, this man was responsible for establishing a scientific fact pertaining to atomic structure, or rather what we can call about the much wondered fact regarding the matter. All right, regarding matter. So as we came to know by now that the idea of divisibility of matter that were wondered by Indian philosophers as well as Greek philosophers, and they came to a juncture whereby they found the smallest particle of a matter called as Parmanu, or to some extent atom. And this atom were somewhere, the name atom was considered worldwide finally. And now you can see this man, Antoine L. Lavoisier, with his scientific temperament of explaining a subject, he established a law, that is the law of chemical combinations. All right, law of chemical combination. Now, when a particular term, the term is your chemical combination, and when this chemical term is called as law, it is called as law when you establish a fact with evidence, and that you have established, and your views or your ideas that you have established with practical evidence is adjudicated by someone else, and it is established by those who adjudicated and found it to be 100% authentic. Only then it will be given the name as law. And as such, Antoine L. Lavoisier was the pioneer in establishing the laws of chemical combinations. Antoine L. Lavoisier was not alone. He was supported by another scientist called as Joseph L. Proust. If we go through vividly regarding the laws of chemical combination, we will come to know that these laws of chemical comprised of two laws. Those were law of conservation of mass and law of constant proportion. So what I was telling you, that these laws of chemical combination as was explained by Antoine L. Lavoisier and Joseph L. Proust, what it actually this law of conservation of mass was basically explained by Antoine L. Lavoisier, and the law of constant proportion was explained by Joseph L. Proust. So what we can say is a joint work done by these two great persons. Now if we talk regarding the law of conservation of mass, we need to understand that the law of conservation of mass is basically what it is. According to the law of conservation of mass, mass can neither be created nor it can be
destroyed in a chemical reaction. So this is the law that is being told regarding the law of conservation of mass. I am repeating once again that mass can neither be created nor it can be destroyed in a chemical reaction. That means in a chemical reactions there are two aspects. One is your reactant that you find in the left hand side, and another one is your product that you find on the right hand side. Normally in earlier classes you have seen what type of reaction it is. In the coming class, that is here in class 10, when you go to class 10, you will get in much more detail regarding this chemical reaction, whereby you will be able to understand regarding the fact. However, the thing that you need to understand, the thing you need to understand regarding a chemical reaction is that it comprises of two aspects. One is your reactant, the other is your product. The other is your product. So the sum total of the mass, as I told you, that the reactant will be on the left hand side and the product will be on the right hand side. So sum total of the mass present within the reactant has to be equal to the sum total of the mass present within the product. Therefore, this law of conservation of mass clearly explains that mass can neither be created nor it can be destroyed in a chemical reaction. So this is what was being explained by Antoine L. Lavoisier very well. Coming to next is the law of constant proportion. Law of constant proportion, that in a chemical reaction substances are present in a definite proportion by mass. That means only telling regarding the presence of mass is not all enough. The mass remains in a particular amount. The mass remains in a particular amount, or rather it can be called that they are present in a fixed ratio within a particular compound. When elements are combining and they are forming compounds, they form compounds in a fixed ratio. And that fixed ratio gives is what we find in case of law of constant proportion. So these two laws were stated by these two people, that is Antoine L. Lavoisier and Joseph L. Proust, and they elaborated these two laws, law of conservation of mass and law of constant proportion. But these laws were not very much understandable to people, or rather what we can say, the scientists who were working with this atomic structure were not very much able to understand it as what these two laws basically tried to explain. In the next video, I shall be explaining you regarding the fact that these two laws, that is the law of conservation of mass and law of constant proportion, needed to be explained, and accordingly another scientist took the charge to explain these two laws, that is the law of conservation of mass and law of constant proportion, and this was explained by John Dalton, who worked on the divisibility of matter and tried to understand these two laws, and later on explained these two laws in his own way, so that the entire concept of atom becomes clear. So in my next video, I shall be coming with this explanation made by John Dalton. Thank you.